A person in a tan ranger hat and light gray uniform shirt stands at a podium holding papers. Behind them, a large animal skin or hide is displayed. Text on the backdrop references the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and Department of Interior.
Good afternoon. How's everyone doing today? That was pretty wimpy. Let's try that one more time for a full house. How's everyone doing today? That's more like it. I hope you're all surviving the heat. It is getting a little bit warmer out there, isn't it? Well, we might find if there's some extra seats up here in the front row, it might be a little bit cooler. I'm not a politician.
A person in a tan cowboy hat and light gray short-sleeved shirt holds a microphone while speaking at a table. Behind them is a banner with U.S. Forest and Department visible. An audience member's head is visible in the foreground.
Well, welcome to the Tent of Many Voices, part of the Lewis Clark Traveling Exhibit, Core Discovery 2, 200 Years to the Future. Inside this tent, we have many presentations. If you have not received a schedule to print it on yellow pieces of paper, come see one of the Rangers or myself, and I can grab one of those performances for you. Today, at this hour, we have a special guest, Ken Thomasma, and he'll be talking about Sacagawea. And with saying that, he wanted to give his own introduction. So let's give him a round of applause and welcome here to the tent today.
A person in a ranger hat and gray uniform holds a microphone while speaking to another person wearing a patterned shirt. They stand on a stage with a black banner visible behind them.
Here you go, Ken.
Thank you. All right. From Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Live on the south border of Grand Teton National Park. Lived there for 28 years. Lived my first 47 years in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I've been a teacher and a school principal for over 50 years. I'm still a teacher, traveling all over the country doing storytelling and writing workshops in schools for children and adults. I've written 10 books, 9 of them historic fiction about Indian children for children and adults to enjoy. 1 book, nonfiction, the amazing story for this afternoon. Let's go back in our imagination 216 years, 1789. We have a new concept.
A person wearing a patterned short-sleeved shirt sits indoors. Behind them are wooden panels, audio equipment, and what appears to be part of a stage or presentation setup.
Constitution. George Washington becomes our first president. The very same year, thousands of miles to the west, in a mountain valley in a place we now call Idaho, a tiny baby girl is born, Shoshone. Indian mother holding little baby in her hands the first time, never dreams she'll grow up to be one of America's most famous women ever, known worldwide. Indian girl born to a tribe then, faced with a life of work and hardship. The men were the warriors and the hunters. The women and children did all the rest of the work. Little girl at age 3 would get training from her mother. The berries to pick, the seeds to gather, the roots to dig, how to cut meat in thin strips.
A person in a patterned brown and white shirt sits in an interior space with wooden furnishings and audio equipment visible in the background. They appear to be speaking or pausing mid-conversation.
Hang it over racks in the sun to dry. Had to help her mother fill baskets with food for winter. Without it, they wouldn't make it through a mountain winter. Little girl will be taught how to cut up any size animal and use every valuable part. She'd learn how to take the hides of large animals and scrape them clean, soften and tan the hides to make clothing and shelter. She'd learn how to carry red-hot coals from one campfire miles away to the next camp for the new fire. She'd learn how to care for children. She would have to learn everything by age 14. That's when she'd start having her own babies. An Indian girl could not wait, only plan on 25, 30 years of life average. Any kind of disease or childbirth problems, no medical help, no one lasted long. Little girl and her people were being held.
A person in a brown and white patterned shirt stands at a microphone on an indoor stage, holding a wooden object in their hand. Behind them are various equipment and furnishings.
Hostage in the valley where they lived, afraid to come out on the prairie and hunt the buffalo, which they had to do. Afraid because on the prairie, fur trade had begun. Hundreds of European trappers came for every fur-bearing animal they could get. The best price then would come from the beaver pelt. Stack up the beaver hides by his camp, take them to the rendezvous in the summer, and the trapper cashes in. Indian men catch on fast. They know they can go get a stack of these hides and take them to that old trapper, trade for the one thing the Indian wants most of all: rifle, gunpowder, and bullets. What a hunter that prairie.
A person wearing a patterned vest sits at a table with a microphone in front of them. Behind them is a wooden structure with signage reading Department US 4, partially visible.
Indian was with his rifle. He had a special horse he called his buffalo horse, one that he could ride into a stampeding herd of buffalo. The horse would not spook or shy. Let him sit there with that rifle and drop any animal, usually one shot. Faster, easier, and safer than a bow and arrow. You know what else he could do with his rifle? Come out here to the mountains where the Shoshone only had a bow and arrow. Shoot the Shoshone men, steal their horses, capture their children, and take them to sell them into slavery. Slavery common most everywhere. They especially wanted to capture the girls. The girl would bring the best price. Every trapper was in the market for at least 2 Indian girls to be his slaves and his wives. The trapper wasn't going to do the work. The girls will do all his work. And he needs 2 of them. One of them's going to die and have to be replaced. And he never wants to be without help. That little girl and her people had to come out of the mountains once every summer. There was no choice. Because out on the prairie where the grasses grew.
A person in a patterned short-sleeved shirt sits indoors, gesturing while speaking. Behind them is a desk with equipment and partial text visible on a dark background.
There were 60 million buffalo grazing like cattle. An Indian man drops 1 buffalo. He has hundreds of pounds of meat for his family. He has bones for tools. He can melt the hooves down and make glue. And boy, they wouldn't make it without the old buffalo robe. You take a look at a buffalo robe. Fur is soft and curly and comfortable. You take a look at an elk, his is long and coarse and rough. The buffalo hide 3 times the thickness of any elk hide. They wrapped it around them and it broke the wind. They rolled up in these at night and slept. They took the fur off of a bunch of hides and built sturdy teepees withstand tremendous wind. No other hide would do what that old buffalo hide could do. The buffalo, food, clothing, and shelter.
A person in a patterned brown and white shirt sits in profile, facing left, in what appears to be an indoor studio or presentation space with equipment visible in the background.
Little girl grows up. She's 11 years old. She comes out with her people right through here on the way to the buffalo hunt. They're getting near where the great Missouri River begins. We call it Three Forks, Montana today. There they were attacked by Hidatsa warriors. Many Shoshone men shot and killed, horses stolen. This 11-year-old captured and hauled hundreds of miles east to be held until she could bring a good price. Year she was captured? 1800. The year Thomas Jefferson became president number 3 of our tiny little country. 15 states now in the Atlantic Ocean, struggling to keep going. And Thomas Jefferson, one of the greatest minds of all the founding fathers, one of the few who was a college graduate, could read and write well, was a man of action and a man of vision. Jefferson had a dream for our country. One day our country would go from that old Atlantic Ocean across this continent to the Pacific Ocean and be a vast land of many states where there would be peace, freedom, and democracy. Greatest experiment ever tried on the face of the earth. Wasn't happening. Spain controlled all the South and California. British and the Russians were in the Northwest.
A person in a patterned shirt with leaf design stands at a podium indoors, gesturing while speaking. Behind them are wooden panels and audio equipment. Text visible on signage includes USF and DEPA.
France claimed all the land from the Mississippi River to the Rocky Mountains. This was all foreign land out here. But Jefferson knew Napoleon was in trouble and needed money to fight England. So Jefferson started working on a little real estate deal with Napoleon. Jefferson wants to buy all the land from the Mississippi River to the Rocky Mountains. And Napoleon wants to sell it. And neither Jefferson or Napoleon knows what's out there. No one has ever seen the land. A blind deal, the Louisiana Purchase. Almost 1 million square miles. Double the size of the country in one deal. For $15 million. 4 cents an acre. Anybody want to buy Iowa for 4 cents an acre? I'll take Des Moines. Hire Jefferson to be my real estate man. He said to his private secretary, Mr. Lewis, "We will soon own all the land drained by the Missouri River." And that expedition you and I have been planning has to go now. We need to know where that river comes from. When you're in the little settlement of St. Louis, I want you to head up that river. Find out where the Missouri comes from. We have rumors there are mountains out there somewhere. You find some mountains, get over them and find the best water route onto the Pacific Ocean. Mr. Lewis, you have to make it. You're president. Your country counts on you. 29-year-old Meriwether Lewis being asked to go where no man has ever gone. He has no idea how far it is, how...
A person in a patterned shirt with brown and white floral design speaks animatedly at what appears to be an indoor presentation space, with studio equipment visible in the background.
How long it'll take, how many men he'll need, tools, supplies, equipment, gunpowder, medicine, gifts for Indian people. It's a monumental job. And Meriwether Lewis was the man to do it. He made long lists of everything he could possibly think of they might need for years. Even needles needed to sew new clothing because their clothing would wear out. The President said to him, "Now, Meriwether, you will be the captain of this Army expedition. I want you to pick a co-captain. One of you men dies or gets killed. The other man can continue the leadership. We must make it." Jefferson building in some leadership insurance.
A person wearing a brown and white leaf patterned short-sleeved shirt stands indoors, speaking. Behind them are wooden shelving units and various objects. Text reading ILT appears in the lower right corner.
So Meriwether Lewis picks his old Army buddy, 33-year-old, redhead, freckle face, William Clark, living in that Kentucky, Indiana country. William Clark, the right man for the job, because he knew how to pick people for the expedition. William Clark rounded up 9 Kentucky backwoodsmen, good hunters and great shots. One was a blacksmith, one was a carpenter. Those 2 men could make and fix anything out of wood or metal. The heart of the Lewis and Clark expedition, 9 young men from Kentucky. Now Meriwether Lewis has only one more thing to figure out.
A person wearing a patterned short-sleeved shirt sits indoors, looking to the side. Behind them are electronic equipment, a monitor, and partial text visible on a banner mentioning U.S. and Depart.
How will he get tons of tools, supplies, equipment, gunpowder, medicine, gifts for Indian people, all the way to the Pacific Ocean? He has that all planned. He's going to have a boat built. A river boat, 55 feet long and 8 feet wide. It's going to be so large, if you stood it up on end, it'd be as high as a 5-story building. He has it built in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, beginning of the Ohio River. All he's going to do is float her right down the Ohio River there to Tip, Illinois, make a right turn on the Mississippi and head upstream to St. Louis, make a left turn on the Missouri.
A person wearing glasses and a patterned shirt stands at a table in an indoor setting. Text at the bottom reads Parkman Forest, partially visible.
And head west. He doesn't even need a map. The road has been there for centuries. Left August 31st, 1803. The keel boat, we think, going 13 ton. Ohio at low water. Mud flats everywhere. They had to practically drag that thing through the mud to Louisville, Kentucky. It took them a month and a half. Gets there, he picks up William Clark and the 9 Kentucky backwoodsmen. They get to the tip of Illinois. Now they can hardly get the keel boat upstream on the Mississippi against a 3-mile-an-hour current. They get.
A person wearing a brown and white patterned shirt stands in an indoor space with wooden furnishings and audio equipment visible in the background. Text overlays reference U.S. and other partial words.
To that St. Louis area, take one look at the mighty Missouri coming out of the high plains, 6 miles an hour. Lewis knows he'll never make it up that river with 15 or 20 men. So he goes into the little settlement of St. Louis, the surrounding area, starts recruiting men of the United States Army. Going to have captains and sergeants and privates. He recruits enough men, he has almost 50. And he marches them. And they stand inspection. They take turns on guard duty around the clock, 24 hours a day. Lewis says, "Men, this is military. We have discipline or we don't make it." Left May 14, 1804 out of that St. Louis area, headed up the old Missouri at high water. Snow melting in the mountains and plains, banks of the river caving in. They had to row that keel boat until their backs ached. They walked along the deck with poles pushing off the bottom of the river. They had to get out with ropes and pull it off of snags and sandbars. They had 2 35-foot boats they were rowing upstream with the big boat. More men, more tools, supplies, equipment, more boats. Captain Lewis wanted to be in the mountains by winter. Ice on the edge of the river last week of October. They're only halfway. in what we call North Dakota today. Average a little more than 10 miles a day of back-breaking work. And they came to the largest permanent Indian settlement on the continent. Over 4,000 Indian people living in one place. Hidatsa and Mandan tribes. Trappers living with them. Captain Lewis says, men, this is it. River's freezing, friendly Indians. We stay here for the winter. We'll start out again in the spring. And men, we're going to freeze to death if we don't have a shelter. Start splitting those cottonwood trees and build us a fort. Gave that order the first part of November. November 4, up.
A person in a beaded shirt with a floral pattern sits at a table in an indoor setting. Behind them is a wooden podium and signage that reads Ricultu and Depa, suggesting an institutional or educational venue.
Walks Toussaint Charbonneau, French-Canadian, living with the Indian people. A wheeler-dealer. Charbonneau wants to make some money. He says to the two captains, better hire me. You start up that river next spring, get out on the prairie and meet some Indian people. I'll help you get along with them. I know how to do it. I live with Indian people. He said, see what I have standing over there? There's my woman. If I go, she goes. I don't go without her. She does my work, and she's Shoshone. And you're going to get out to the Shining Mountains. And the Indian people in these villages tell me, you are going to hit a lot of mountains. You'll never get hundreds of pounds of bags and gunpowder over the mountains without horses. And my woman speaks Shoshone. They have hundreds of horses. She'll be a big help. Captains looked that over. Okay, Charbonneau, you're hired. We'll pay you $500. You get 320 acres of free land when we get back. The woman can go. Not a woman standing there. It's a 15-year-old girl. It's the 11-year-old who was captured. Charbonneau won her gambling when she was 14, 3 times her age. What was happening to her then could not happen today. She would be protected by our child laws. Back then she was nothing. 3 strikes against her. Indian, woman, slave. Going to do what she's told and never make a sound. 3 months she'll have her first baby. That won't make any difference. She'll pack the baby with her. Now President Jefferson's great Army expedition to the Pacific Ocean takes on a new human feature, to be assisted by a teenage girl carrying a tiny baby. You check out your history books and see where that's happened in the United States Army before or since. It's a unique feature of this expedition. Next time you hear about the girl we call Sacagawea.
A person wearing a patterned short-sleeved shirt stands at a desk or counter in an indoor setting. Text visible at the bottom reads U.S. Fish and Depa and Culture, suggesting a government or institutional setting.
She's in the fort. February 11. The girl is crying out all day in pain on one of these buffalo robes. She's trying to deliver her first baby. And the men said the pains were terrible. And they went on all day. She cried out for help. There is no help. There's no doctor. Late afternoon, Captain Lewis is worried he's going to lose the girl and the baby. This could be very messy. Finally, one of the men living with the Indians comes up to him and says, hey, Captain Lewis, why don't you just do what Indian people do to help her? They just take the rattle of a rattlesnake and grind it up, put it in a little water, have her drink it, that'll do it. Lewis says, I have a rattle I was going to send back to Jefferson, let's try it. They grind up the rattle, mix it in some water, says to Sacagawea, drink this. She drinks the rattlesnake juice. 10 minutes later, Jean-Baptiste Charbonneau is born. Beautiful black hair and sparkling brown eyes. Named after John the Baptist. Nickname in Shoshone, Pomp, meaning leader or firstborn. And all the men would call the little baby Pompy. Tiniest member of President Jefferson's great expedition to the Pacific Ocean. Quite a beginning for that youngster's life. And can't you see Captain Lewis standing there thinking, boy, I can't believe what just happened. We get back to Virginia, we'll just get a bunch of rattle, we'll grind them up, mix them in some water, we'll bottle that stuff up, and we'll sell it out of every drugstore in Virginia. No OBGYN needed anymore. Ladies are laughing louder than you men. Next time you hear about little Pompy, he's an 8-week-old bundle. His teenage mother straps him on her back. Sacagawea steps into a boat on April 7, 1805, and starts up the Missouri River with 31 men for the Pacific Ocean. The teenager will carry the tiny baby almost 5,000 miles round trip, a year and a half, and keep him clean and warm and well fed every day. The men will have great respect for the girl and the care she gives the child. They learned about her skills right away. A couple of days on the river and they're camped out. Sacagawea sees a pile of driftwood.
A person wearing a patterned shirt with leaf design sits at a desk in front of a podium or presentation area. Behind them, text reading US 4 and Department is partially visible on a dark background.
On the ground, tracks made by mice. She knows what the mice did in that wood pile. Pulls the wood apart, takes out a big pile of wild Jerusalem artichoke roots the mice put in there for winter food, roast them up, they're sweet and delicious and good for you. Wild onions, wild carrots, roots, berries, stems, seeds. They said that girl could find food all over the mountains, all through the prairie, even in driftwood piles. They watched her make her own fishing tackle, get her own bait, take fish out of every lake and stream. Provided all the food she needed for herself and her baby and extra for the men. They wrote more in their journals about her ability to find food than anything else they wrote about her. Found out something else about her on May 14.
A person wearing a brown and cream floral print shirt sits in an indoor studio setting with wooden furnishings and equipment visible in the background.
They're now in what we call eastern Montana, going up the river where the Missouri was a mile wide. Captains walking along the bank, looking out at their little flotilla. Men rowing 2 35-foot boats upstream in 6 canoes. They sent the old keel boat back to St. Louis in the spring, weren't going to drag it another mile. 6 p.m., a microburst of wind hit that river. Churned up waves 3 and 4 feet high. Every boat and canoe started to go over. If the boatmen know what to do, you get your...
A person in a floral patterned shirt gestures while speaking at what appears to be an indoor venue. Behind them are wooden architectural elements and signage, with audience members partially visible.
Bow into the waves so you don't get them broadside, and head for shore. Every boat and canoe turned except the captain's main 35-footer didn't turn. Charbonneau had the tiller, panicked, screaming in French to God to save his life. Pierre Cruzat, a man in front of the boat, picked up a rifle and pointed it at him and said, "Charbonneau, you turn this thing or I'll shoot you." He finally made the turn, but Lewis on the riverbank looked out in horror. All of his valuables washed overboard. A bundle like this, wrapped in hide, had the journals and the maps he and Clark had prepared for the President of the United States, losing their irreplaceable documentation. Over went the medical bundle they couldn't get along without. Over went the tools for reading latitude and longitude and making maps. Captain Lewis said he was ripping off his jacket.
A person in a patterned short-sleeved shirt stands at a podium on a small stage. Behind them is audio/visual equipment. Text at the bottom reads US 4 and Department and Coolty in depth, suggesting a government or cultural organization backdrop.
Gonna dive in the river and swim 300 yards out there to save his precious items. 300 yards of ice-cold Missouri, he never would have made it. He stayed on the riverbank, and I'm sure he smiled, because he sees out on the back of the boat the teenager watching it all happen. The journals came first, and she reached out and grabbed that bundle and pulled it back on board. Then she grabbed the medicine and pulled it back and saved it. Then she grabbed the tools for making the maps and saved them. Captain Lewis wrote in his journal later, "That girl saved all my valuables." And he added these words of high praise. On the stricken craft, the young woman showed as much fortitude and resolution as any man on the boat. Good as any man were the marks the President's secretary gave her. 6 days later, Lewis named a river coming from the north, Sacagawea's River, to honor her. They knew they were going to come to a waterfall. Indian people in the village during the winter told Captain Lewis, "You're going to hit a waterfall after you get your boats out and go around." He thinks he can do that in a day or two. They could hear the great falls of the Missouri roaring in the distance. They weren't coming to one waterfall. They were coming to 15 miles of waterfalls. Deep cataract in the river with water going over rock 5, 10, 15, 20. One falls they measured 87 feet high. Captain Lewis described it as the most spectacular feature he had ever seen on Earth. Going to cost him more than a day or two. He says to Clark, "Wait here. I'm going to go take a look. Be back in a few days." He left June 13 with Sacagawea, seriously ill, terrible pain in her lower stomach. She's burning with fever. Pulse is weak. No doctor to call. But they have Dr. Benjamin Rush's medicine. Captain Lewis went to Philadelphia to get medicine from Dr. Benjamin Rush for the expedition. Primitive medicine. Dr. Rush probably says something like this. "Here it is, Captain Lewis. I got the box right here. All the bottles in here labeled so you know what everything is." He explains what each thing is. He says, "Now, Captain Lewis, don't worry. Nothing in here can hurt anybody. Try whatever you think might work. If it doesn't work, try something else. Something works pretty good, keep giving it to them. Nothing works, cut them and bleed them and expunge the bad blood. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to give you an IV today to strengthen your blood. We're not going to take it away from you. You need it. Captain Clark tried all the medicine. 2 days later, Sacagawea is on her back, refusing medicine, wanting to die. The medicine didn't work, so Clark cut her and bled her. And the next day she was worse. He cut her and he bled her a second time. Captain Lewis said he came back on Sunday, June 16th. He said what he saw was pitiful. The girl lying on the bottom of the boat on her back, her body twitching uncontrollably. He couldn't find her pulse, knew she was near death. He said to Clark, if that girl dies, what happens to...
A person wearing a patterned button-up shirt sits in a chair on a stage set with wooden paneling and studio equipment visible in the background.
4-month-old Pompy. And how do we get horses? We can't let her die. Clark said, I tried everything, including bleeding. And Lewis says, well, I went by a mineral hot spring. There's bubbling hot water coming out of the ground. Smells like it has sulfur in it. Back in Virginia, doctors claim mineral water has healing power. Let's try some. They get some of that hot water and cool it down. Sunday, June 16th, 3 p.m., he says, Sacagawea, drink this. She drinks the mineral water. He says, okay, drink some more. She drinks it. He says, keep drinking it. Had her drinking large quantities of mineral water all afternoon. The miracle happened that night. The fever broke. Less pain in the lower stomach. Strong pulse. Strength enough to sit up and hold Pompy the first time in days. A little boy happy to have his mother back. Modern-day doctors who read the symptoms and the treatment are absolutely sure she was dying of severe dehydration. They believe caused by a common lower body venereal infection given to her by Charbonneau. The fever going 104.5. And then Clark drains away the blood needed to fight the infection and makes her worse. The journal record says she was up walking around 2 days later. The journal also indicates the girl and the baby nearly died 4 different times serving the United States Army. To get around the Great Falls was agony. They had to drag their canoes, even bigger than Steve's out there, up a steep bank. Canoes made out of trees weighing hundreds of pounds. Get them up on the bank. Build wheels and axles out of cottonwood trees. Put the canoes across the axles. Load them with hundreds of pounds of baggage and gunpowder and push and pull and drag them for 18 miles. None of it level. Wheels and axles breaking. Mosquitoes eating them alive. Prickly pear cactus puncturing their moccasins and their feet. A hailstorm hit them on June 29 with ice so big, cut the men's heads open, cut their arms. They had to dive under the canoes to escape the falling ice. That storm caused a flash flood. Nearly washed Captain Clark, Charbonneau, Sacagawea, and the baby right out of a ravine to the river and over the 87-foot falls to their death. June 29, not what you would call a good day. Middle of July, 1 month of back-breaking work and swollen feet have paid off. They're around the Great Falls and headed up the Missouri again. July 22nd, Sacagawea looks around, realizes where they are, lets Captain Lewis know he's almost at the beginning of the mighty Missouri River. She said it's made by 3 small rivers coming together in exactly the same place. Lewis announced that to his men, and he said they began whooping and hollering and dancing in the sagebrush.
A person wearing a brown and white patterned short-sleeved shirt stands in what appears to be an indoor venue with a desk or table visible behind them. A partial word coli is visible on signage in the background.
2 long years of battling the old Missouri River, and success is theirs. They're finding the source of the great Missouri. Trouble is, when they get there July 25, which river do they take? They all 3 look exactly alike. Do they take the left one, the middle one, or the right-hand one? They're going to take 3 days to try and figure this out. Send men up all 3 streams to check them out for miles. While they're doing that, Sacagawea says to Captain Lewis, I was captured on this river, the one you named for President Jefferson. It's my people's river. They took the Jefferson. If they had taken the Gallatin River or the Madison River, they would have had to pay $20 to get into Yellowstone National Park. That's where they come from, and nobody had a Golden Age pass. 1 week on the Jefferson, and all of a sudden it's made by 3 small streams right over there by Twin Bridges. Now what do? They're going to spend 3 more days trying to figure this one out. Lewis is going to try the Big Hole, even though Sacagawea knows the Middle River is her people's river, and there's a good horse road next to it. Somehow they ended up on the Middle River. surprisingly enough. It wasn't long after that, a little more than a day, that Sacagawea is pointing at a rock up ahead, goes up to the river, almost 200 feet high, and she said, I know that rock. I've gone by it many times when I was a little girl. My people call that rock the Beaver's Head because it looks like that animal to my people. She said Beaver's Head on August 8th and named everything in southwest Montana. I tell this story all over about Dillon. You go there, Beaverhead River, Beaverhead National Forest, Beaverhead Mountain Range, Beaverhead Electric, Beaverhead Meets, Beaverhead Historical Society. The phone book is full of Beaverheads. Just because Sacagawea said it on August 8th, that's why you're Beaverhead. And then she let Captain Lewis know that her people are either on this river or at the source. He goes to the setting sun. He can find her people and horses. Lewis looked at Clark and he said, that's all I need to know. We haven't seen an Indian in 1,000 miles. Bringing our canoes over gravel and rock. Hundreds of pounds of baggage and gunpowder last us more than a year. We're all done right here if we don't get horses and get them now. He said, Captain Clark, my friend, we're not going to fail. He said, I'm taking 3 men. I'm going to leave at daylight. And I'll walk a month if I have to. But I will find the Indian people with the horses. Have them come back here. We'll trade goods out of canoes for horses. He walked all day August 9 and camped right near Dillon. August 10, August 11, August 12, almost 90 miles. And he said, stop, men. Standing on the high ridge, Lewis says, men, this is the top of the continent. The water in the valley we came from goes to the Missouri River. And the water in that valley down there.
A person wearing glasses and a patterned shirt sits at a desk in an indoor setting. Behind them is wooden furniture and partial text visible on signage in the background.
There goes to the Pacific Ocean. This is the top of the continent. Exactly right. Continental Divide, border Montana and Idaho today, Lemhi Pass. A road is up there. Let's hope to stand up there and look down and see a river that would take them all the way to the ocean. No passable river down there. We know which one it is. You can't get down it. And what he saw to the west shocked him. For hundreds of miles, nothing but the Bitterroot Mountains. Higher mountains than he's ever seen in his life. He's facing an unbelievable barrier and failure. Rolled and tossed on the ground that night, could hardly sleep. Next morning, valley, and there they were, 500 Shoshone Indian people, over 700 beautiful horses. He gave them beads and mirrors and ribbon and an American flag, and he said to them, if you Indian people come back to the river with me, we have wonderful things in our canoes we're going to give you. If you just let us use some of your horses to go over these mountains. And he said, if you help me, father in Washington who loves all of his red children will come out here and stop the killing and the kidnapping and the stealing. We're all going to live in a great land in peace and freedom as brothers and sisters. All you have to do is help me. That's a basic speech Captain Lewis gave to 40 Indian tribes begging for their help for 3 years. The Shoshone are suspicious. They'd come out a month before to hunt buffalo, were attacked by Hutt's warriors, and many were shot and killed. Most of these people thought he was going to lead them out there to a trap. So of the 500 people, 28 men and 3 women dare follow him. For 2 days, scared to death of an attack. Came to the old Beaverhead up there by Clark Fort. Canoes and the men. And in the water, Sacagawea helping the men pull the canoe over some gravel. She climbed out of the river that Saturday morning and started walking toward the Indian people. And suddenly Sacagawea broke into a run. And out of the crowd came a 15-year-old girl running toward her. They met, threw their arms around each other, jumping up and down and laughing and dancing and crying. Sacagawea let Captain Lewis know he found her people. And this was her best friend. Said they both grew up together, and when they were 11 years old, were both captured in the same battle. Sacagawea said, I was won gambling by the man who owns me, and this is my friend who escaped and came home alone. I read that living in Michigan, and I said, wait a minute here. 11-year-old girl weighing 60 pounds, 1,000 miles through wild animals, enemy warriors, bad weather, crossing wild rivers, going where the explorers didn't dare go alone because you can't kill a grizzly bear with one shot. The 11-year-old girl was willing to face death for her freedom. Think about that for an American theme. Americans still face death for freedom.
A person with white hair wears a patterned shirt and stands at a desk or counter in an interior space. Behind them is a monitor and signage mentioning U.S. Food and Department of Agriculture.
I knew I had a great book to write. Didn't know the little girl's name, so I gave her a name in Shoshone. This is Girl and this is Rand. Little book's been out 22 years. It's now going across the world. It's in Danish and Dutch and Norwegian and Eskimo dialects for Greenland, Bengali for Bangladesh, and Korean and Japanese, and we think going to be translated into Russian. An amazing little 11-year-old girl facing death for freedom. Next person, her own brother, Sacagawea, took one look at him and began crying. Ran to him, put her head on his shoulder, sobbing. Her brother had no hair on his head. 1 month before, had cut it all off. Shoshone men and women don't cut their long, beautiful black hair. They believe their Creator in heaven allows their soul to live in their hair. Only when you're broken and saddened by death would you cut your soul off and throw it to the ground, showing your Creator your sorrow. We know what he told her that day. Sister, you're 1 month too late. Our family was killed at the Babylon. They said the girl cried most of that day. A couple times tried to do some interpreting, would break down. When she could only speak, she did the greatest thing for the country she would ever do. She said to her brother, these are good men I'm with. Save my life, to my baby, stop my owner from beating me. Help them, they're good men. Wasn't speaking just one of the 500 Indian people of the tribe. Speaking to her brother, the chief of the tribe. Captain Lewis had the chief's sister with him. Odds makers have told me for that to happen, that moment in American history was millions to one. Like winning the lottery, manifest destiny, and providential. The horse trading started right away, but it went slowly. Captain Lewis would say something in English, Labiche. He would translate it to French for Charbonneau. He would translate it to Hidatsa for Sacagawea. She would translate it to Shoshone for Sacagawea. Sacagawea would answer to his sister in Shoshone. She would translate it to Hidatsa for Charbonneau. He would translate it in English for Labiche, and Labiche would translate it into French for Labiche, and Labiche would translate it into English. So in a week, they only had 12 horses. And they needed 30. And the Shoshone children have no buffalo meat to eat. They were attacked a month before. They're starving. Starving children are more important to Indian men than trading horses. And the Indian men plan to leave in the middle of the night and go on the hunt. Next day, Lewis wakes up, no horses, he's in big trouble. Sacagawea knows what's going to happen. She could understand Shoshone. And went right to her owner and said, tell Captain Lewis my people are leaving in the middle of the night, going on the hunt. No more horses, there's trouble. Charbonneau hears this in the morning and waits all day. Late afternoon, he comes over. Hey, Captain Lewis, my woman over there, she says her people are leaving in the middle of the night. They're going to go on the hunt. Lewis says to Charbonneau, when'd she tell you? He said this morning. And Lewis wrote in his journal that he reprimanded Charbonneau severely. Something like this. Charbonneau, you knew this morning and waited all day to tell me? Don't you understand that these people have my expedition in their hands without the horses were finished? Why did you wait? Calmed down, went over to Sacagawea and said, Sacagawea, did you promise you would trade me the horses I need when I came here? Did you promise that? Sacagawea said yes. And Lewis says, Sacagawea, where I come from, by what he says. And Sacagawea, you think the great father in Washington is going to be happy when I tell him you left? He's not going to do anything for your people. If you're a good chief and a good man, you will stay and do the promise. Mark it down, August 25. Sacagawea did the greatest thing of all. Saved the day when the horse trading was going to fail, and she was the only one that could do it. Indispensable, Lewis called her. Well, we know she did the job because the horse trading started right away. And it went fast. And they soon had 29. Didn't ride them, load them with tons of bags of gunpowder. Given to Pompy and his son to lead him through hundreds of miles of the Bitterroot Mountains, over 200 miles. Up one ridge and down the next, slide rock, climbing over dead trees, on the low ridge in September with snow up to their knees, ran out of food, started killing young horses and eating horse meat, wormy and rancid and smelly. They all came out of the mountains with scurvy and dysentery, open boils, sores all over their arms and legs, starving to death. And they met the finest Indian people they would ever meet, the Nez Perce tribe. Saw the starving people and brought them fish and berries and roots and seeds. The Nez Perce tribe helped those men take giant trees, 40 and 50 feet long, gouge and burn those trees out to make dugout canoes so the men could pile in their baggage all the way to the Pacific Ocean. The Nez Perce agreed to take care of all their horses and have them fattened up and ready to go in the spring when they came back. Now a herd of 65 horses, because they kept trading for more all along the way. Captain Lewis said, "We have met the finest Indian people of our expedition, the Nez Perce tribe. They can't do enough for us strangers." Middle of October, they're floating that beautiful Clearwater River. You can ride US 12 right next to it. It's beautiful. It goes into the spectacular Snake River. And the Snake River goes into eastern Washington and hits the great Columbia River, border of Oregon and Washington, headed for the Pacific Ocean. It goes through a deep gorge with volcanoes on all sides. November 7, Captain Clark shouts, "Ocean in view!" Oh, the joy. Made it to the Pacific Ocean November 7. Spent 3.5 months of misery on the Oregon coast. 130 days it rained, 118. The clothes rotted on their bodies. They hang their elk meat up with no freezing temperatures, rancid and smelly in 4 or 5 days. Ate rancid elk and spoiled fish. Washed it down with water. Filled up their fort with smoke every afternoon to get the fleas out so they could get a night's sleep. All of them were sick when they left March 23, headed home. Glad to be rid of the soggy Oregon coast. First week of May, back with the Nez Perce. Horses all fattened up and ready to go. But that low ridge up out of the Clearwater over the mountains, not ready. Snowbanks 30 feet deep. They sat there for 6 weeks watching snow melt. I come from Jackson, Wyoming. We have some of the finest snowbanks you have ever seen. And all of us locals every spring are sitting there in our lawn chairs watching them go. It's really exciting. You got to do it sometime. While they're there, little Pompy is sick. 15-month-old boy's throat up normal size. They said he couldn't swallow anything and could hardly breathe, and they feared for his life. The men love him. They don't want him to die. The 2 captains take turns holding the little boy in their arms, trying all the medicine Dr. Rudd. 2 weeks near death, and they barely pull Pompy through. Riding across the prairie one day, his little face was bitten so badly by mosquitoes, his eyes were swollen shut. Not easy for a teenage girl and a tiny baby to serve that expedition. Thousands of miles. When they get back to North Dakota country to leave Sacagawea there, head on to St. Louis, the 2 captains agree. Sacagawea rendered great service to the United States of America. They wrote it right in their own language. And they said Charbonneau was a man of little merit. They paid him his $500 on the spot. He would come to St. Louis later and get 320 acres of free land. Anything they gave Sacagawea, he'd take it from her as soon as they left. They had to keep him from beating her. Captain Clark loved Pompy and said to Sacagawea and Charbonneau, "Let me adopt this beautiful, promising little boy. I'll give him a wonderful life, education, many opportunities." Parents agreed to the adoption as soon as he was old enough to leave his mother. Captain Clark's name is signed in the courthouse of St. Louis. He became Pompy's father. 1 month after death, his 22-year-old mother, dying Fort Manuel, South Dakota, same putrid fever she had at the Great Falls, left behind a tiny baby girl, 4-month-old Lisette. He wrote about her death in the fort, wrote these words: "Today, the finest and best woman in our fort died, the wife of Charbonneau." Finest and best, more high marks given her. We don't know what happens to little Lisette. We think she only lived 6 or 8 months. But Pompy goes on to live a wonderful life. He grows up well educated by Captain Clark, becomes a hunting guide for wealthy men from Europe. One is a prince from Germany, invites him to come to Germany and live in a royal palace, travel all over Europe, class with the prince. Pompy does it for 6 or 7 years. He comes back and serves in a Catholic mission outside of San Diego, California. He serves as a clerk in a hotel outside of Sacramento. He's a magistrate in the courts of California, settling legal issues. And he dies at the age of 61 on the way to a gold rush in Montana, dying of pneumonia. Average age of a man then, 45 years. Today we have 3 wonderful things going for us: nutrition, hygiene, and health care. A lot of us are here, lucky to be here. And wasn't Pompy fortunate? His young mother carried that expedition, and old Captain Clark fell in love with him and gave him a wonderful opportunity for a great life. St. Louis was a dead end for Sacagawea. Nobody wanted to hear about her or the Nez Perce. Europeans hated him. They were killing Indian people. Indian people were killing Europeans. The tragedy would go on, massacres, genocide for almost 80 more years. Not a very nice chapter in the history of our country. Well, we're in the bicentennial now. 19 people started writing about Sacagawea, and they just wrote about it. Some wrote dirty, filthy pornography. Hollywood made an awful movie. We exploited her. I wanted you to know the truth about her, so I picked out all the mentions Lewis Clark made of her in their 2 million words, over 70 times, and analyzed it, put the maps in so you know exactly what happened to her and the baby. The book came out in 1997, the same year the United States decided to have a new dollar coin, replace the Susan B. Anthony. Gold color, smooth edge, new woman. I got involved with the coin right away when there were hundreds of women. Sent this book to Secretary of the Treasury Rubin, told all the things that she did in that expedition, and nearly gave her life with her baby serving the Army. And we ended up getting Sacagawea on the dollar coin. Then a congressman wanted to take her off because he thought she was some obscure Indian girl. And we had to fight him in Congress with the help of Senator Enzi and Senator Dorgan of North Dakota. We had to defeat legislation twice. Went to the White House where there was a huge out-of-hand ceremony. Indian drummers and Mrs. Clinton was the hostess. After an hour and 15 minutes of celebrating the design of the new dollar coin, she said, I'm going to pull back the curtain to show you the design. It will be the new dollar coin. You're going to be the first to see it, she said to all of us sitting there. She pulled back the curtain. Every television camera from every network was running. She unveiled the beautiful Sacagawea dollar coin. The congressman who didn't like it, that she was going to be on there, said nobody would like it, was dead wrong. It came out January 2000. People lined up for blocks to get the first hours. 600 million of them disappeared immediately. A lady in Idaho Falls has 2,500 of these stashed away. She won't let loose of them, and I'll tell you why. For her, it's greed. Save them long enough, sell them for a lot more to collectors later. Pompy, 8 weeks old, asleep on his mother's shoulder. That's the only coin in the world with a baby sleeping on his mother's shoulder. This is our only coin where the person on it is looking at you. All the rest are profile. And look at the gold tin. So nobody's allowed to use it, except the tooth fairy. Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Enzi tells me buying tons of paper and cotton, send it into linen, and running through a printing press, making dollar bills that don't even last a year and a half, and it's costing us $700 million in tax dollars. This is the first county ever to declare itself the Sacagawea Dollar County. Your commissioners did that way back in 2000. These coins will last 40 or 50 years. We used to only use dollar coins in Montana when I first came here in '59. We need the $700 million to help our troops, folks. We don't need to be wasteful Americans. We could help our troops more if we didn't waste, we didn't have such a deficit, and like no tomorrow. So let's not just put a sticker on our car saying we support the troops. I have enough dollar coins in here to eliminate every dollar bill in the audience. I'm going to go over to that little bookstore over here and sign books. I want everybody who's got a good conscience to come over with your dollar bills and start using these. It would be wonderful if you did. Make me happy. I can't get Congress to eliminate the dollar bill. Canada's done it. Australia, New Zealand, the pound, England, the euro. They're all coins. No brainer, except for Americans. The White House ceremony was over at 4:30. 150 of us go to the Treasury Department across the street for happy hour. A ballroom full of goodies, and I knew there would be a lot of small talk. I didn't want to do small talk. I wanted to say something uplifting about what we did that afternoon. So everybody, this is what I said. 193 years ago, two captains of the United States Army stood on the banks of the Missouri River, looking at a teenage girl and her little boy, saying goodbye to her, said gratitude for what Sacagawea had done for them and the United States of America. They said their one great regret, they couldn't do anything to show her their appreciation. I said today, we Americans stood on the banks of the Potomac River in Washington, D.C., and the country's doing something wonderful for that girl and her little boy. And it's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ken.
You're welcome.
Folks,
all the boys and girls, all the boys and girls that are here, I have a special gift for them. Set a cassette tape of one of my books I've read aloud word for word. And I'm celebrating the bicentennial by giving children a little gift, and they can take me home with them, so to speak, on cassette tape. I'll be over there by that little bookstand, and you come up and you'll get their cassette tape.
Ken now. Go over to the bookstore to meet Ken, and he'll be signing books, and he's invited all of you over there. Right now, we have to get ready for our next presentation, which is about rattlesnakes by Roger Simon. I've said rattlesnakes in the East Coast. All you women and children will be up in the rafters by now. You all are tough out here in the West. So stay tuned for that. We do have to rearrange some of the chairs. So in that meantime, please go see Ken over there at the small bookstore. And he'll be